What is actually your assignment to carry? Many leaders carry burdens they were never assigned to carry while neglecting the responsibilities of their actual assignment. This is built to govern beyond the game. There are many leadership frustrations that actually come from carrying responsibilities that don't belong to us. Stewardship begins with the clarity we have on knowing what is ours and what is not. This isn't about delegating tasks. It's actually about knowing what your assignment actually is. Before we can govern an assignment well, we must be very clear what God has given us and what He has not given us. In this understanding, we know what we have been given God's grace to do and what we have not been given God's grace to do. Oftentimes, when we think about God's grace, we think more along the lines of, I have the ability to do this. But I don't think we fully understand assignment grace. This is something that I had to learn over the last couple of years. I've been in ministry now for over 2 decades. The first half of my ministry was pulpit ministry. I was a preacher. I was a teacher. I was a leader over ministries. I was a leader in ministries. But I did not understand assignment grace. I said yes to a lot of things when I should have said no. It's easy to say yes when we believe that we are being obedient to God or for the sake of serving. But I burnt out many times. Now, we shouldn't burn out when it comes to our purpose or our calling. But when we don't understand assignment grace, burnout is inevitable. Now, I know there are a lot of leaders in ministry who may feel a little guilty about admitting they are frustrated and burnt out. But assignment grace doesn't just say, I have the ability to do this, or I should do this, or I can do this. Assignment grace also means God saying, no, I have not given you the grace to do that. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to do it. And it doesn't mean that God is displeased with you if you did it. And we come to truly understand what assignment grace is. It simply means I have the wisdom to decide if this is really something that is my responsibility. Is this really something that God has assigned me to, or is it not? During my first decade of ministry, it wasn't that God said, no, you cannot do it. But what I know now that I didn't know then was that He was giving me the opportunity to learn what assignment grace really was. And I can apply the wisdom and the understanding. Is it what you're giving me the responsibility to carry? Because a burden is not always an assignment. Many leaders believe because I care, because I have a burden, because I really want to help God's people in this area, then that must mean this is my assignment. You can have a deep burden for something, but that does not necessarily mean that God has assigned you to that burden. We must also understand how burdens work. Burdens are processes. And before God says, this is your assignment, He will first process that burden through us. For a long time, I had a particular burden when it came to leaders. God was saying, yes, I put this burden on you, and you've had this burden for a long time. But that does not mean that I am ready to assign you to this burden. First, I must process you through this burden. Once we have a heavy burden for something we know that God is calling us to, we must stop and ask, is this burden for now or is this burden for later? It is too much weight to carry the burden for others when we have not yet been equipped to carry the burden for ourselves. We are not yet equipped to carry the responsibility of an assignment until we have been processed through the assignment ourselves. Carrying what isn't ours to carry can often cause us to neglect what is ours to carry. Now, I know that this may crunch some toes, but let's be real here. We know that many people neglect their families, neglect themselves for success, to lead others. A lot of times we are so focused on our responsibility to others that we overlook our responsibilities at home first. Why should we have to be told often, you need to take time for yourself, you need to rest, you need a vacation? When God gives us assignment grace, it's balanced. Assignment grace doesn't cause us to neglect ourselves, to neglect our families for the sake of leadership. Now, although in the past I have often said yes when I should have said no, assignment grace has taught me that today I will quickly say, I don't have the grace to do that. It's not that I can't do it, I just don't have the grace to do it. And this is the lane we need to operate in as kingdom leaders. Leaders who operate in kingdom governing principles also govern their own lives. They don't neglect themselves. They don't neglect their families. They know when to say yes, and they know when to say no. Being faithful in our assignment and knowing the assignment grace that we have also keeps us focused on our assignment. We are clear about what we are to be focused on and what we are not to be focused on. We are less prone to distractions. Also, being faithfully focused on our assignment keeps us from comparing ourselves to others. When we are more focused on what it is that we should be doing, what we are supposed to be doing, we don't really have the time to compare ourselves to what other people are doing. Stewarding our assignment is not about carrying everything. It's about being clear what's your responsibility and what's yours to carry. Stewardship begins with clarity. A burden is not always our assignment. Carrying what isn't ours can often cause us to neglect what is ours. And faithfully carrying out our assignment requires us to focus on our assignment. We cannot govern what God has not given us His grace to govern.